At exactly 11:14 a.m. on March 5, 2026, the heavy oak doors of the estate office at Sandringham clicked shut with the finality of a vault closing. Prince William stepped inside, his footsteps echoing against centuries-old floorboards that had witnessed the rise and fall of monarchs. On the mahogany desk sat a single document, an estate deed transfer bearing the royal seal, its edges crisp as fresh money. The auditor, a stern woman named Keisha Washington, placed her fountain pen down with deliberate precision. The ink hadn't even dried on William's signature when she slid a second folder across the polished surface. "Your Royal Highness," she said, her voice cutting through the morning silence like a blade. "The termination list." William's fingers traced the embossed cover. Inside, 23 names were typed in clinical black letters. But it wasn't the length of the list that made his jaw tighten, it was the first name at the top. Not a groundskeeper, not a secretary, not some distant cousin who'd been collecting a paycheck for doing nothing. Queen Camilla's sister, Annabel Elliot. The woman who'd been drawing £19,625 per month from the Duchy of Cornwall for interior design consultancy. A role that somehow required no office, no schedule, and no accountability. 20 years of payments. Nearly £5 million of public money funneled to one family connection. Hi viewers, have you ever had to fire a family member from your own business? And if so, how did it feel? William's blue eyes scanned the document again. The morning light streaming through the Georgian windows caught the gold lettering, Sovereign Efficiency Mandate, Immediate Implementation. Every name on this list represented a thread in a web of royal nepotism that stretched back decades. Every signature meant another family dinner that would never be the same. His private secretary, Marcus Chun, stood frozen by the door. 23 years of royal service had taught him to read the temperature of a room, and right now, the air felt electric with the kind of change that toppled governments. "Sir," Marcus whispered, "perhaps we should consider a more gradual approach?" William's response came without hesitation. "The gradual approach gave us 20 years of this." He tapped the folder. "Load the cars. We have 22 more stops to make today." But as William reached for his coat, his phone buzzed with a message that made his blood run cold. The text was from an unknown number, but the words were unmistakable. "You just declared war on the wrong family. The Sandringham estate sprawls across 20,000 acres of Norfolk countryside like a private kingdom, but it's just the beginning. Add Balmoral's 50,000 acres, the Duchy of Lancaster's 45,000 acres, and suddenly you're looking at an empire worth £1.2 billion. Not jewelry, not paintings, raw power measured in land, timber, and rental income that flows like a river into royal coffers. For 7 centuries, these estates operated on a simple principle: blood pays bills. Cousins became consultants. In-laws became interior designers. Family friends became essential advisors, with salaries that would make Fortune 500 CEOs weep with envy. But William saw something else in those numbers. While British families struggled to heat their homes, royal relatives were billing the crown for £400,000 kitchen renovations. While nurses worked double shifts for £35,000 a year, Camilla's family collected monthly payments that exceeded most people's annual salaries. The mathematics of monarchy had become a moral emergency. Every pound spent on nepotism was a pound not spent on the people who actually believed in the crown. Every sinecure position filled by a family connection was a professional opportunity stolen from someone who'd earned it. Deshaun Thompson, William's newly appointed financial advisor, had laid out the brutal truth in a 47-page report titled The Aristocratic Drain. The numbers didn't lie, even when the lies had been politely ignored for decades. The old system wasn't just inefficient, it was a ticking time bomb. In an age of social media transparency, How long could a monarchy survive when its balance sheets looked like a family reunion guest list? But changing 700 years of tradition in a single morning requires more than moral clarity. It requires the kind of institutional power that can rewrite the rules while the establishment is still having breakfast. And William was about to discover just how deep the roots of royal nepotism actually grew. The phone call came at 2:47 p.m., while Annabel Elliot was selecting fabric samples for her Chelsea townhouse. Her assistant's voice cracked. "Ma'am, there's been a development with your duchy contract." 40 minutes later, Annabel sat in her Range Rover outside the Duchy of Cornwall offices, staring at a termination letter that began with the words, "Immediate cessation of all consulting agreements." 2 decades of guaranteed income gone. The monthly deposits that had funded her lifestyle, her holidays, her children's private school fees, canceled with the clinical efficiency of a bank foreclosure. But what stung wasn't the money. It was the silence that followed. No courtesy call. No explanation. No acknowledgement of 2 decades of service to the royal family. Just a legal document delivered by courier and a new reality that hit like ice water. She had become expendable. The efficiency gap had claimed its first casualty, but William's reforms went deeper than individual terminations. Every contract renewal now required justification. Every family connection faced scrutiny. Every pound of royal spending needed a paper trail that could survive a Freedom of Information request. Tanya Rodriguez, William's communications director, had briefed the palace press office with military precision. The narrative was simple: modernization, not vindictiveness. Accountability, not cruelty. The future of the monarchy depended on earning public trust, not exploiting public patience. By 4 p.m., the story had leaked to the Telegraph. Prince William N's family consulting contracts in sweeping royal reform. The headline was diplomatic, but the subtext was nuclear. The new heir wasn't just cleaning house, he was burning it down and rebuilding from the foundation up. But as the news cycle began to churn, William's phone did something that hadn't happened in 15 years of royal service. It went completely silent. No congratulations, no support, no acknowledgement from the very family he was trying to protect. The silence felt heavier than any criticism could have been, because it meant the real war hadn't even started yet. The story begins 23 years earlier in a Windsor Castle drawing room where Queen Elizabeth II made a decision that would haunt the monarchy for decades. Prince Charles had just married Camilla, and the new queen consort arrived with family connections that needed appropriate accommodation within royal structures. Annabel Elliot's first consulting contract was modest, £2,000 per month for interior design advice on duchy properties. The paperwork, filed in a manila folder marked Family Integration, Discretionary, seemed harmless enough. A newly blended royal family taking care of its own. But Jamal Patterson, the royal archivist who discovered the original documents, found something that made his hands shake as he turned the pages. The signature authorizing those first payments wasn't Charles's. It wasn't even Camilla's. It was a name that had no business approving duchy expenditures. Thomas Parker Bowles, Camilla's son. The Sandringham Audit File, assembled over 18 months of forensic accounting, revealed a pattern of financial manipulation that would have triggered federal investigations in any other institution. Consulting contracts that multiplied like rabbits. Renovation projects that somehow required the same consultant year after year. Expense reports that documented £47,000 for fabric consultation on a single cottage renovation. But the smoking gun lay buried in Appendix C of the audit, a private bank account in Annabel's name that had received direct transfers from 3 separate royal estates. Not consulting fees, not reimbursements, direct transfers that bypassed every royal accounting protocol established since 1952. 23 years of payments totaled £4.7 million, but the real scandal was architectural. Each contract had been structured to avoid oversight, each payment designed to slip through cracks in royal financial governance. The system hadn't broken down, it had been deliberately circumvented. LaToya Williams, the forensic accountant William had hired from PricewaterhouseCoopers, summarized the scope in language that could have been used in a criminal indictment. This represents the systematic conversion of public trust into private benefit through institutional capture. The deeper William dug, the clearer it became that Annabel Elliott wasn't the problem. She was the symptom of a system that had confused family loyalty with financial accountability for so long that it had forgotten the difference. But buried in the final pages of the audit was a signature that shouldn't have existed, one that linked the royal estate's money to a private investment fund that had been hidden from royal oversight for over a decade. The purge began with surgical precision on March 8th. William's strategy wasn't random termination. It was systematic elimination of every contract that couldn't justify its existence in daylight. The second casualty was Robert Jobson, Camilla's nephew, whose £156,000 annual salary for strategic communications consulting had produced exactly 0 documented communications in 4 years. The third, Lady Sarah Keswick, a family friend whose cultural advisory role had somehow required £89,000 in annual fees plus expenses for attending gallery openings and charity galas that she was already invited to as a guest. By the fourth termination, a pattern emerged that chilled the royal household. William wasn't just cutting costs, he was performing autopsies on decades of financial arrangements that had operated in the shadows of royal accounting. Each contract revealed new levels of creative nepotism that would have impressed organized crime families. But the successor's approach revealed something more dangerous than anger: righteousness. He wasn't firing people in rage. He was removing them with the cold certainty of a surgeon cutting out cancer. Each termination letter contained the same closing sentence: "The crown serves the people, not the people who know the crown." Keisha Washington, now leading the transition team, implemented what became known as the Transparency Protocol. Every new hire required 3 references from outside the royal circle. Every consulting contract needed measurable deliverables. Every expense required receipts that could survive public scrutiny. The psychological effect on Clarence House was immediate. Staff who had grown comfortable with the old system of royal favor suddenly found themselves documenting their actual work. Meetings that had once been casual conversations about family matters became formal sessions with written agendas and recorded outcomes. But it was the 5th termination that crossed a line no one had expected William to approach. On March 12th, Tom Parker Bowles received a legal notice requiring him to repay £127,000 in consulting fees that had been paid for work that investigation revealed had never been performed. The letter was delivered by courier at 8:15 a.m. while Tom was having breakfast with his mother. Camilla read the legal language over her son's shoulder, and for the first time in her royal tenure, the Queen Consort realized that her stepson wasn't just reforming the monarchy. He was erasing her family from it entirely, one contract at a time, with the methodical patience of someone who had been planning this moment for years. The emergency meeting in Camilla's private study lasted exactly 17 minutes. Tom Parker Bowles paced behind his mother's chair while she gripped her teacup with white knuckles. The repayment demand wasn't just about money. It was about humiliation served on legal letterhead with the royal seal as witness. "We leak it," Tom declared, his voice sharp with desperation. Every detail, every conversation, every private moment where William showed his true colors. Camilla's media advisor, a sharp-eyed woman named Kesha Franklin, shook her head violently. That's career suicide disguised as strategy. But Tom was already dialing Rebecca English at the Daily Mail. The plan was simple. Paint William as a cold-hearted reformer who'd forgotten the meaning of family. Leak private conversations. Reveal personal details about his financial obsession. Show the public a prince who valued spreadsheets over people. The call lasted 43 minutes. Tom provided quotes that painted his stepbrother as ruthlessly calculating. William told me directly that family loyalty was a luxury the monarchy couldn't afford. He described private dinners where William allegedly mapped out his purge strategy months in advance. By 6 p.m., the story was live. Prince William's secret vendetta. Family sources reveal cold-blooded campaign against Queen's relatives. The article included intimate details about family gatherings, private phone calls, and William's alleged comments about cleaning out the parasites. Every quote was attributed to senior family sources, but the fingerprints belonged entirely to Camilla's inner circle. For exactly 4 hours, it looked like brilliant tactical warfare. The public narrative shifted toward sympathy for a wronged family facing a vindictive heir. But at 10:07 p.m., Tom's phone buzzed with a text that made his blood freeze. Check tomorrow's Times. Your leak just exposed something you've been hiding for 10 years. Sleep well. A concerned citizen. The counterattack had been waiting in the wings, loaded with ammunition that Tom Parker Bowles had just handed his enemies on a silver platter. William's response arrived not through leaked quotes or angry statements, but through a single handwritten letter placed on King Charles's breakfast tray at 7:30 a.m. The envelope bore no royal seal, just his son's distinctive handwriting. For your majesty's eyes only. Inside, for sentences that would change everything. The sovereign efficiency mandate was your idea, not mine. I have the recording from our December conversation. Your stepson's leak yesterday violated the Official Secrets Act. I await your instructions. Charles read the letter 3 times before its implications sank in. His son hadn't gone rogue. He had been following explicit royal orders while allowing himself to be painted as the villain. Every harsh decision, every cold termination, every moment of apparent cruelty had been orchestrated to protect his father's reputation while implementing his father's vision. The recording existed. 3 hours of private conversation where Charles had outlined his frustration with family financial arrangements and explicitly authorized William to clean house with whatever methods necessary. The leak to the Daily Mail hadn't just revealed Tom's desperation. It had created legal liability for revealing private royal conversations. Meanwhile, William was quietly installing his own team with the methodical precision of a chess grandmaster moving pieces into checkmate position. Zara Kingston, his former Cambridge classmate, became the new director of estate operations. Her first qualification wasn't her bloodline, it was her MBA from Wharton and her track record managing £2 billion in private equity investments. Malik Thompson, a former Goldman Sachs analyst, took over royal financial planning with a mandate to make every pound traceable and every expense justifiable. His background screening revealed no royal connections, no family ties, and no loyalty except to institutional excellence. But the most dangerous appointment was Aaliyah Chun as Director of Internal Investigations. Her previous job, forensic accounting for the FBI's white-collar crime division. Her first assignment, a complete audit of all financial arrangements involving family members over the past 15 years. The new team wasn't just replacing the old guard. They were investigating it. Every contract, every payment, every arrangement that had operated in the comfortable shadows of royal tradition now faced the harsh light of professional scrutiny. By sunset on March 15th, the patient guardian had become the hunter, and his prey had just realized they were already surrounded. At exactly 9:00 a.m. on March 18th, William stood before the Royal Press Association and spoke 4 words that detonated the British establishment. Project Mirror begins today. The sovereign transparency mandate wasn't just policy reform. It was constitutional revolution wrapped in executive efficiency. Every royal expenditure over £500 would be published online within 30 days. Every consulting contract would require public justification. Every family member receiving royal income would submit to annual performance reviews conducted by independent auditors. Aliyah Chand stepped to the podium with a leather portfolio that contained the financial autopsy of royal nepotism. Ladies and gentlemen, Project Mirror has uncovered systematic misuse of public trust spanning 3 decades. We have identified £847 million in questionable expenditures, including £127 million paid to individuals whose work product cannot be documented. The numbers landed like artillery shells. Tom Parker Bowles, £394,000 for consulting work that produced 0 measurable outcomes. Lady Sarah Keswick, £267,000 for cultural advisory services that consisted entirely of attending events she would have attended anyway. Annabel Elliott, £4.7 million for interior design work that independent contractors could have performed for £800,000. But the nuclear revelation came in page 47 of the report. A private investment fund called Heritage Holdings had been receiving royal money for 12 years through a network of shell companies and family trusts. The fund's primary beneficiary, Tom Parker Bowles. The total amount diverted, £2.3 million. The fund had purchased properties, financed business ventures, and paid for lifestyle expenses that had nothing to do with royal duties. Every transaction had been structured to avoid detection, every payment designed to look like legitimate consulting income. Malik Thompson's forensic analysis revealed the scheme's elegant simplicity. Royal estates would hire consultants, who would then subcontract portions of their work to Heritage Holdings. The money flowed in a circle, but it always ended in the same private accounts. Project Mirror didn't just expose financial impropriety. It revealed a sophisticated system for converting public money into private wealth through institutional capture and family connections. The investigation had uncovered something that went beyond nepotism into territory that prosecutors would call criminal conspiracy. William hadn't just inherited an empire, he had inherited a crime scene. But there was one final property the investigation hadn't touched yet. Camilla's private residence at Ray Mill House, purchased with funds that forensic accounting revealed had come directly from Duchy of Cornwall accounts through a real estate trust that shouldn't have existed. The final confrontation took place in the throne room at Buckingham Palace at 4:17 p.m. on March 20th. Camilla entered through the gold-gilded doors to find William standing beside a mahogany table covered with legal documents, each stack representing a different family member's financial arrangements over the past 2 decades. "Your Majesty," William's voice carried the weight of institutional authority. "We need to discuss the Heritage Holdings investigation." Camilla's composure cracked for the first time in her royal tenure. The private fund wasn't just about Tom's financial schemes. It was about her own knowledge and participation in arrangements that had systematically extracted wealth from royal estates for family benefit. William opened the central folder with deliberate ceremony. Inside, bank statements showing direct transfers from the Duchy of Cornwall to Heritage Holdings, authorized by signatures that bore her personal approval. £2. £3 million over 12 years, disguised as legitimate business expenses but flowing directly to family accounts. "Tradition is a memory," William said, his words precise as a legal verdict. "The future is a contract." The statement wasn't poetry, it was constitutional law. Under Project Mirror's new protocols, royal family members would sign legally binding agreements governing their financial relationships with crown estates. No more gentlemen's agreements. No more family understanding. No more trust without verification. Annabel Elliott's sister was escorted from Clarence House grounds at 5:43 p.m., carrying a single suitcase and a termination agreement that included a non-disclosure clause preventing her from discussing royal financial arrangements for 10 years. Her departure was witnessed by 3 independent legal observers and recorded for royal archives. The clinical precision of the removal sent a message that echoed through every royal residence. The era of family financial privilege had ended not with argument or negotiation, but with security escorts and legal documentation. As the gates of Clarence House closed behind the final family member to be removed, William didn't look back. His attention was already focused on Balmoral Castle, where similar arrangements awaited similar scrutiny. The purge was complete, but the transformation had just begun. 700 years of tradition had been replaced by transparency protocols that would govern royal finances for generations to come. The jury of public opinion delivered its verdict through polling numbers that told the story of a monarchy transformed. 73% approval for Project Mirror. 81% support for royal financial transparency. For the first time in decades, the institution of monarchy showed higher approval ratings than individual royals. But in the private dining rooms of aristocratic London, a different conversation was taking place. The families who had benefited from royal nepotism for generations now faced a new reality. Merit would determine access, not bloodlines. Professional qualifications would secure positions, not family connections. The cost of efficiency, however, was measured in relationships that would never recover. Christmas dinner at Sandringham would no longer include Camilla's extended family. Royal weddings would no longer provide automatic employment opportunities for distant relatives. The comfortable network of royal favor that had sustained aristocratic families for centuries had been replaced by corporate accountability standards. William's reforms had saved the monarchy's reputation, but at the price of family peace that might never be restored. The question that haunted royal observers was whether institutional survival justified personal destruction, whether saving the crown was worth sacrificing the family that wore it. The era of the royal paycheck was over. Palace employment now required actual qualifications. Royal consulting contracts now demanded measurable results. The transformation was complete, irreversible, and absolutely necessary for monarchy's survival in the 21st century. But as William stood in his private study at Kensington Palace, looking at approval ratings that validated every difficult decision, one question remained unanswered. Can an institution built on family tradition survive when it treats family members like corporate liabilities? The answer would determine not just William's legacy, but the future of constitutional monarchy itself. Had he saved the crown by destroying its heart, or had he finally given the monarchy the backbone it needed to survive another century? The transformation was complete, but its consequences were just beginning. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that explores power, family, and the price of doing what's right. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think William's actions were justified, or did he go too far? Your perspective could inspire others who face similar impossible choices between loyalty and duty.